This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Thursday, November 26th. This is Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees. So our broadcast will look a little different today and in the near future as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what's going on, and we appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. The coronavirus pandemic is being blamed for gender-based violence in a number of African countries. In Nigeria, activists are calling for better tracking of sex offenders after the number of rapes tripled during the COVID-19 pandemic. They say social shame of rape often leads to silencing victims instead of prosecuting offenders. Ifyoke Tang reports from Jos, Nigeria.
Madeline Sambo's 4-year-old daughter was raped twice by one of her neighbors, the latest attack in September. Her community silenced the first rape by negotiating a settlement with the rapist. Sambo refused to take the money, and after the second attack, she went to the police and had the rapist arrested.
I said to them, if you will be silent about rape, under God, I will never keep quiet.
Nigerian activists say the social shame of rape and sexist views often lead to silencing victims instead of prosecuting offenders.
So we need a cultural, a paradigm shift when it comes to our cultural mindset. And now we have a masculinist culture which promotes hegemonic masculinity, where the male is seen as more important, of more value, and has more rights and privileges assigned and ascribed by culture. This has to be addressed.
The United Nations Deputy Secretary General visiting Nigeria this month noted rape cases had tripled during the COVID-19 lockdown to more than 3,600. The UN Children's Agency, UNICEF, says almost half the victims were girls under age 18.
The statistics we have show that about 1,657 children were affected negatively. They experienced violence-related forms of, experiences. And out of this number, 1,501 of these children are girls, and they mostly experienced sexual violence.
Nigeria's Governors Forum in June declared a state of emergency on sexual violence against girls and women and called for setting up sex offenders registries.
Data gap. It is very serious data gap in which even when we have data, it's often disjointed, not linked up, not joined up to one another, and we need an integrated nationwide database, which this sex offenders register promises to give.
Nigeria a year ago launched its first sex offender registry, but local media report that despite the declared emergency, only 3 of 36 states have so far set up registries. Ifyoke Etang for VOA News, Jos, Nigeria.
Women's rights activists in Senegal say gender-based violence has increased during COVID-19. To raise awareness for the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, Senegalese artist Diart exhibits her own experience. Esther Jonjo reports from Dakar.
47 years old Senegalese painter Diart, who only wishes to be identified by her artist name, is a survivor of gender-based violence. The mother of 2 was born with a disability that made it hard for her to protect herself from her violent husband. Diart divorced and uses her paintings to show the attacks and social stigma against abused women.
I identify with these paintings. I don't take the suffering of another, but I take my own suffering. I'm trying to represent on a canvas. So, through my brushes, my painting, as a committed artist, it is my duty to raise awareness through my paintings, but it is also my duty to denounce.
Activists say gender-based violence has increased globally during COVID-19 restrictions, and Senegal is no exception. Activist Didi created violence against women in Senegal after a close friend was killed by her husband. During the COVID-19 lockdown, Didi's website has been flooded with messages from women in need.
All of the cases I have received are where women are being kicked out of their homes by their husbands just to make life hard for them just before curfew.
To raise awareness of the abuse of this year's International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women on November 25, Diart is showing her work at Dakar's House of Urban Culture. Diart's painting will be on display throughout the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, an annual international campaign from November 25 until December 10, Human Rights Day. Esther Githui-Ewart for VOA News, Dakar.
An estimated 17 out of every 10,000 Americans experience homelessness on any given night. A network of shelters and volunteers still try to make them feel at home. Nguyen Lai has our report.
The Manassas Homeless Center in Virginia is about an hour from Washington, D.C. And during this holiday season, volunteers are delivering a traditional Thanksgiving dinner.
Today, we serve everyone here with turkey, ham, mashed potato, and pumpkin pies. These are popular traditional American foods on this occasion.
The year-end holiday season starting in November in the U.S. is always the busiest time for charity groups. It's when they visit these shelters to serve food and show love and care to the needy.
Fresh meal is definitely helping people living here. They can count on coming here and getting something good to eat, coming off the street and making the best of their days.
Because of the ongoing pandemic, many activities to support the homeless, such as providing hot meals and distributing free warm clothes at public places, have been canceled. That's why today's visit is both meaningful and helpful.
Any meals, any donations that we get, it always helps them. Right now it's quiet because they're sleeping, but they'll be up very soon looking for something to eat. So this meal actually came right on time for lunch. So yeah, it would definitely help.
When people gather for Thanksgiving, we feel lucky that we are surrounded by family, friends, and loved ones. These needy here might feel lonely and miserable, lacking those sacred things in life. That's why we come here to show love and understanding.
This group has also prepared 80 meals to serve at another shelter on Thanksgiving Day. It's a way to help those less fortunate in these difficult times. Nguyen Lai, VOA Vietnamese, reporting from Manassas, Virginia.
Incumbent Burkinabe President Roch Kabore has nearly 4 times the votes of his nearest rival, with over half of districts reporting, the Electoral Commission says, but the opposition has raised concerns over the validity of the count. David Doyle reports.
Burkina Faso's incumbent president, Roch Kabore, edged closer to re-election on Wednesday, amid opposition concerns over the validity of vote counting. The West African country held an election on Sunday, though polling stations were closed across swathes of the north and east where militants linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State operate. On Wednesday morning, after results from more than half of Burkina Faso's districts, Kabore was reported to have more than 593,000 votes. That's almost 4 times as much as his nearest rival, former Finance Minister Zéphirin Diabre. Counting had resumed on Tuesday after a 24-hour pause, caused when 5 opposition members of the Electoral Commission temporarily suspended their work. They were concerned that some districts had not produced manual voting tallies to accompany electronic ones, as required by law. They returned on Wednesday but questioned the validation of results that had been resumed without their oversight. Having secured 58% of total ballots cast, Kabore is now on track to secure enough votes to avoid a second round. But opposition uncertainty over the count threatens to complicate an election already troubled by the threats from Islamist militants.
That was David Doyle of Reuters reporting. November marks 3 years since Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa took power and promised to honor his people's constitutional rights. But critics say freedom of the press is not being respected, pointing to the 2 arrests this year of journalist Hopewell Chinono. Columbus Mavunga spoke with Chinono and has this report from Harare.
Zimbabwe police arrested reporter Hopewell Chinono twice this year for tweeting. First in July, when Chinono spent 45 days in pre-trial detention for a tweet supporting an anti-corruption protest, and then in November for one criticizing the country's Chief Justice. Chinono says authorities are sending a clear message with his arrests.
So that is self-evident that there's no freedom of press, and because of those arrests, consequently, journalists are afraid of pushing the envelope and doing the right thing, practicing journalism, because they are saying to themselves, if they could arrest Hopewell twice for practicing journalism, what more could happen to us? We are not as prominent as he is, and we could just languish and rot in the prisons.
Former President Robert Mugabe often used tough media laws to arrest critical journalists during his 37-year rule. When President Emmerson Mnangagwa came to power in 2017, he promised free expression, raising hopes of change. Authorities say Chinono's tweets were not about press freedom, but about inciting unrest and obstruction of justice.
Nobody's been arrested under any law which has something to do with the media. But if laws have been broken in other sections of our security, obviously, whether it's a journalist, a lawyer, or a doctor, people will be arrested. But other than that, the environment for the media to operate has been very enabling.
However, press freedom groups say Zimbabwean government has never stopped efforts to muzzle the media.
The attacks on the industry have been aggressive, and we have seen the weaponizing of the law, the introduction of the cybersecurity bill, which seeks to snoop and empower the military to crack down on expression. The heavy-handedness of the regime on the media has been highly pronounced.
If the cybercrime bill becomes law, Zimbabwean journalists accused of spreading falsehoods on social media could be punished with up to 5 years in prison. Chinono is expected to go on trial in December for allegedly inciting the protest against corruption. Columbus Mavunga for VOA News, Harare.
Journalists in Britain say they are facing an increasingly hostile atmosphere with intimidation, physical assault, and online abuse now seen as routine and part of the job. Henry Ridgwell reports from London.
Britain's National Union of Journalists surveyed its members on their experiences of intimidation and abuse. More than 3/4 of respondents agreed that it has become normalised and seen as part of the job. Some 51% reported receiving abuse online, with women and ethnic minorities particularly targeted.
If you're being threatened with rape, if you're being threatened with grotesque violence, if your family members, your children are being threatened over social media, you can't simply think, don't feed the trolls, don't engage with it. You have to take those threats very seriously. And even if you weren't, the very fact that this content is appearing in your life, in your home, is incredibly unsettling, and it's affecting people's mental health and their well-being.
1 in 5 respondents said they had been physically attacked. Journalists in Northern Ireland reported increasing threats and assaults. The killing of 29-year-old Lyra McKee, who was shot dead as she reported on rioting in the city of Derry in 2019, underlined the ongoing dangers that journalists face in the region. Many respondents said that abuse and intimidation had worsened under the coronavirus pandemic, especially during public demonstrations and protests.
Having their camera equipment targeted and damaged, and in some instances being physically assaulted.
Many of those surveyed blamed politicians for stoking a hostile climate for media.
Some of the rhetoric we've seen targeting the work of journalists, dismissing stories that don't meet with their approval as fake news, attacking so-called campaigning newspapers. It's made the climate, I feel, very much particularly challenging for people who are simply trying to do their jobs.
The British government says it is considering new legislation requiring social media companies to take responsibility for threatening and abusive material on their platforms. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, fans from around the world pay tribute to soccer legend Diego Maradona, who died of a heart attack on Wednesday. Stay with us.
Alongside Nigeria, we survived the future with Mr. Soprano. You know what it is, my bad records. Get it on. Too many haters started, I ain't gonna be here. I'm ignoring the fake track in my pen. Never found.
Welcome back to Africa 54. U.S. President-elect Joe Biden delivered a Thanksgiving address Wednesday, saying the country will get through the pandemic and urging Americans to recommit to the fight against the coronavirus. Biden spoke as the United States is facing a steep rise in COVID-19 cases and a surge in food insecurity. White House correspondent Patsy Widakuswara has our report.
Even as coronavirus cases surge across the country, Americans are defying guidelines and traveling over the holiday. Calling for sacrifice in his Thanksgiving remarks on Wednesday, President-elect Joe Biden urged Americans to redouble efforts and recommit to fighting against the spread of the virus.
Don't let yourself surrender to the fatigue, which I understand it is real fatigue. I know we can and we will beat this virus. America's not going to lose this war.
Earlier this week, President Donald Trump observed the White House tradition.
Corn, I hereby grant you a full pardon.
And pardoned a Thanksgiving turkey.
During this Thanksgiving, we extend our eternal gratitude to the doctors, nurses, healthcare workers, and scientists who have waged the battle against the China virus. And we give thanks for the vaccines and therapies that will soon end the pandemic.
Turkey is at the center of a traditional Thanksgiving meal, but not all Americans will be celebrating this year. Long lines at food banks reflect an increase in food insecurity in America during the pandemic.
There's really no way to have money coming in if you're not working.
Feeding America, a network of 200 food banks, projects that more than 50 million Americans will have faced hunger in 2020, up from 35 million before the pandemic. The country is also suffering a wintertime surge in COVID-19, with close to 13 million total cases and 260,000 deaths. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News.
Farmers in Botswana's Chobe region are struggling to protect their crops from elephants, but a local conservation group has developed a toolkit to safely repel the giant mammals and prevent farmers from killing them. Mkondisi Dube reports from Chobe, Botswana.
Botswana's Chobe region has nearly 33,000 elephants, a quarter of the country's total, which accounts for nearly half of all elephants in Africa. But while the growing population is a good sign for conservation and attracts tourists, the elephants are a nightmare for farmers like Chibeya Longwani, who says they ravage his crops.
Time when I started planting, it was very, I would say it was much tight due to animals were just coming rapidly and coming to destroy. The government was trying, but it was not much enough so that I can sustain and even to make life out of it. Mostly elephants, they were coming time and again to come and destroy it.
Farmers try to drive away elephants by banging pots, burning hot peppers, or in some cases, killing them. Conservation group Elephants Without Borders rescues orphaned calves but wanted to prevent the deaths. So the group built a toolkit that uses the animal senses to repel them safely.
When we say senses, we mean we're targeting a different sense of the elephant, just like we have. So smell, touch, sound, and taste. So it's a lot of different techniques that combined make one big toolkit to scare elephants away.
The device called EleSense is solar-powered to make it easier for farmers in remote areas with poor electricity. It uses an organic oil repellent, motion sensor alarms and lights, and electric wires. Farmer Longwani says it has helped save his crops.
Ever since I put the electric lines, I haven't had any damage up to now. I'm just producing very well. So now they don't come and disturb. Immediately they can approach, but they get shocked, then they move away.
So far, close to 100 farmers in the Chobe region are using EleSense. From the feedback, most now prefer it as the traditional methods are not 100% effective. Botswana has an elephant population of more than 130,000, making it likely that more farmers will adopt the new device. Mkondisi Dube for VOA News, Chobe, Botswana.
Soccer legend Diego Maradona died Wednesday, less than a month after celebrating his 60th birthday. Although worshipped by many for his soccer prowess, it was his personal demons that grabbed headlines later in life. VOA correspondent Mariama Diallo reports.
Diego Armando Maradona died after suffering a heart attack at his home in the suburbs of Buenos Aires. Those close to him confirmed on Wednesday. Maradona was so much to so many in Argentina and beyond. Slava Malamud is a sports analyst.
He is the very embodiment of that peculiarly Argentinian term el pibe, the boy, the lad. He is that's how Argentinians, especially like the poor Argentinians, see themselves. You know, this ruffled-haired, spunky, devil-may-care type of individual, fun-loving, who is just effortlessly brilliant. And that's why he was called El Pibe de Oro, the golden boy, is because he is just the most El Pibe person who was ever born. And I think this is how he's going to be remembered in Argentina.
Revered as one of the greatest soccer players of all time, Maradona led Argentina to win the 1986 World Cup. His 2 goals against England, one of which was controversial, secured an epic quarter-final victory. Malamud remembers watching that match.
Both goals were tremendous. Everybody saw it was a handball. Everybody except for the referee saw it was a handball. But I think now that even in England, people understand how brilliant the guy was.
From soccer clubs to famous players to ordinary people, tributes are pouring in on social media. Gracias por todo, Diego. Thanks for everything, Diego, writes FC Barcelona. Eternas gracias, eterno Diego. Eternal thanks, eternal Diego, writes his former team, Boca Juniors. Famous players like Ivorian Didier Drogba writes, my idol passed away. Rest in peace, Diego Armando Maradona. My first ever football shirt, the man behind my love for football. Another famous player, Kylian Mbappe, writes, RIP legend, you'll stay in the history of football forever. Thank you for all the pleasures you gave to the whole world. About a month ago, Maradona celebrated his 60th birthday. A 100-meter-long billboard was erected in his honor at the center of Buenos Aires.
Many criticize his personal life. Diego is soccer. He is life. He is everything. With his private life, he can do whatever he wants. But he gave us everything. He is the greatest thing in the world. He is the greatest thing there is.
His life beyond soccer often drew fierce criticism.
The things that happened to him later, the drugs, the alcohol, the cozying up to dictators and unsavory characters worldwide. It was his failings as a human being that caught up with him later. When he was at his peak doing what he loved, he was able to mitigate those things, and he was able to show the world his actual talents. When he was forced to stop doing what he loved, all the bad things came out. I hope that's not what people remember about him.
As his fans at home and around the world mourn his passing, Argentine President Alberto Fernandez declared 3 days of national mourning. Mariama Diallo, VOA News, Washington.
The recent passing of a ballot initiative in California that defines so-called gig economy workers as independent contractors rather than employees could influence labor laws for the rest of the United States and beyond. Dana Mitchell reports.
Lyft started as a new way to earn a little extra. Open and available.
This ad posted to YouTube was part of an unprecedented $200 million initiative in California by Lyft, Uber, and other firms to convince voters that workers who use their apps to find work should be classified as independent contractors, overturning 2019 state legislation that defined them as employees. It's a big win for the companies, who are no longer required to cover all their drivers for health care and paid time off. The companies see their victory as a vote of confidence in their model of a third way of defining work, app-based gigs, and may inspire similar pushes elsewhere.
It's going to be something that we're going to see affecting more than just California now at this point, because other states are looking to challenge, and that's including Massachusetts, New York, and even New Jersey.
Gerace supported the initiative because he said as an independent contractor, the promise of flexibility works for him.
I'm not full-time, I'm part-time, so I go on and off when I choose. It's much more convenient for me that way.
But opponents say the company's victory comes at the expense of workers' rights. This kind of app-based piecework may seem to offer flexibility, but it comes with serious downsides, they say.
The gig worker stuff in general, I think, is a problem for labor everywhere because it's making people independent contractors. You take away unemployment, you take away workers' comp, anything that you kind of offer protections under the law, you're losing those.
The victory by the app companies like Uber and Lyft may embolden other industries to pursue the third way model for their employees, some labor experts say.
I think that maybe scarier prospect is just this sort of offers an avenue for lots of other types of companies to follow in step. And I wonder and / worry about instances where like a Walmart decides to say, hey, actually our workers are also independent contractors.
As Uber, Lyft, and other app companies look beyond California, the future of work, what it means to have a job, may be a concept that is changing. Dina Mitchell for VOA News, Oakland, California.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.